Hello and welcome to this video where we will explore the mysterious world of the Assassins. The Assassins were a secretive order of killers who operated in the Middle East during the medieval period. Their story is shrouded in myth and legend, but what is the truth behind these shadowy figures? In this video, we will answer some of the most intriguing questions about the Assassins. What was their origin, how did they operate, and what was their recruitment process? We will also delve into the history and hierarchy of the Assassin Order, including their beliefs, methods, and targets. Moreover, we will explore how they managed to maintain their power and influence despite their small numbers and conflicts with both Sunni and Christian rulers. And finally, we will uncover the origins of the phrase, "Nothing is true, all is permitted," and its connection to the Assassins and William Burroughs. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the fascinating world of the Assassins. We all love to exaggerate and embellish past events. Now imagine that the same story has been embellished from generation to generation for 1,000 years. What do you end up with? We end up with the history of the Assassins, the mysterious order that spawned dozens of games and hundreds of myths. What were the Assassins of antiquity really like, and were they really so elusive? How much truth in the series of games, and what connects the Assassins with the Templars? We will tell you everything in the next couple of minutes for a day reincarnated in the skin of a mysterious warrior of the past. Meet Dariush Ardeshir and the fortress of Alamut, his new home. It is 1100 AD, and our Dariush fortress is 60 miles northwest of the modern capital of Iran. It was there that the same order of assassins, which gave birth to so many legends, was based. Its origins lie in the fundamental contradictions between the followers of Islam. In brief, the Sunnis recognize the Prophet Muhammad exclusively and elect their own rulers, while the Shias do not only prefer Muhammad, but also his cousin Ali, and in turn, their ruler must belong to the family of Ali and be the heir of the legendary ancestors. This is important because later the movement divided into several more parts, and their hatred for each other was often greater than their hatred for the Christians. Looking ahead, the Assassins, being a branch of the Shias, even united with Christians and Crusaders to fight together against the Sunnis. The first myth we encounter is that Assassins are a sect. They aren't, folks. Better known as the Nizarites, the Assassins are an entire state that existed from 1090 to 1256 and occupied a very vast territory, from Tajikistan to northern Africa. Our Dariush Ardeshir is a subject of the ruler Hassan as-Sabbah, who will go down in history as the founder of the Order of Assassins. Hassan was a very smart guy who revered the teachings of the Ismailism, a branch of the Shiite branch of Islam. The boy became an itinerant preacher, which brought him to the attention of a high Persian official, Nizam al-Mulk. There are legends that they were friends, but this has long been disproved. All that matters for us is that Nizam ordered that Hassan should be arrested. But he proved cunning, escaped, and, converting the fortress of Alamut, seized it without firing a single shot. Thus was born the state of the Assassins. Times were hard, because in the fortress, in addition to our Dariush Ardeshir lives, no more than 1,000 people, which compared to the mighty empires of the time, a mere crumbs. This was the reason for the widespread use of assassins. Hassan's logic was simple. In those days, any war went this way. Two lords would quarrel, stand on opposite hills, and watch their armies slaughter each other. Hassan, sitting in the fortress of Alamut, figured out that if you kill a lord, his army will not fight. And this tactic worked perfectly. The only question was the manpower. Where to find such graceful killers? Here, as you have guessed, our Dariush Ardeshir enters the scene. The word assassin itself is misunderstood by many. It was invented by the guy's worst enemies, the Sunnis, and many associate the word's origin with hashish. Allegedly, the ruler Hassan used to get people high. They would fall asleep and wake up in a room with wine and women, more like heaven. The would-be assassin would feast, he would get stoned again. And upon waking up, Hassan would say that it was a demo version of paradise, and to get there, the assassin had to follow all his orders. Don't rush to envy our Ardeshir. This is all a fiction of propaganda. It was profitable for the Sunnis to make the Shias look like insane drug addicts, and the excavations done at Alamut deny the very existence of that very room of simulated paradise. The word assassin was an insult, but a different one, for it came from hashishin, and the closest translation would be the word hick. For our Dariush, Ardeshir is more like a Spartan. Hassan as-Sabbah recruited future assassins from poor families, seeking to convert minds that had not yet been formed. The Ardeshir awaited the life of a farmer who would see nothing but fields and slaps from his landlord for all his existence. and Hassan gave him skills, education, and the promise of paradise after death. It is not hard to understand that the vast majority of the poor agreed to become assassins without any demo version of paradise. There is a legend that candidates would stand at the door of Alamut and sit for long days without food or water under the insults and kicks of the locals. Those who didn't break down were enrolled, and the rest were free to leave. The legend has long since been disproved. A brutal selection was not required, since poor people went for the promises of paradise in thousands. This included our Ardeshir. This led to assassins taking one fortress after another almost without a fight. Eventually, an entire state was formed. The fame of such assassins went far, and the ruler of Alamut Hassan became known as the Old Man of the Mountain. In fact, he had the first elite secret service in history at his disposal. Our Ardeshir years, he studied martial arts, wielded any weapon, and the art of theater helped perfectly transform into any person. Moreover, Dariush, like any assassin, had his own specialization in the region. Ardeshir worked in Persia, which meant he had an advanced course of language, culture, and local life in order that he could pass for one of his own if necessary. Remember the Persian Nizam al-Mulk, who tried to arrest the Old Man of the Mountain Hassan? He hated the teachings of the assassins, and in turn loved the Sufism mystics. On October 14, 1092, after evening namaz, he was approached by locals, among whom were guys in suits who adored Sufis. One of them was our Dariush, who saluted him with a dagger through his heart. This is one of the landmark killings in assassin history, cementing their status as guys with whom, despite their large numbers, it is best not to quarrel. The rulers adjacent to their territories even went to bed in armor and were so intimidated that they let only verified subjects in. Moreover, the assassins invented racketeering and took tribute from some officials in exchange for their safety. Here, however, we step on another myth. Assassins may have been masters of secrecy, but they were not masters of escape. In all, during the reign of the Old Man of the Mountain, about 70 people were killed on his orders. And for this, more than 100 assassins gave their lives. It wasn't even the difficulty of the operation. The point is that, in the vast majority of cases, after completing the mission, the assassin did not run anywhere. Why, after all, the job was done, and there was a paradise with wine and houris ahead. Moreover, often the assassin who carried out the order of the elder loudly delivered his will and intimidating speeches to the people, and very often he was executed afterwards. This is what made the guys popular. The elusive assassins, who didn't care about their lives, instilled terror even in the inhabitants of Europe. True, after the death of the ruler and closer to the decline of the state, the assassins began to work for hire, eliminating both, the targets of Christians and the targets of supporters of Islam. What are the similarities with the Sparta we mentioned? And the similarity is that the assassins were as ascetic as possible. The Mountain Elder preached renunciation of worldly goods, simplicity of life, and absence of temptations. In fact, this alone rejects the theory that the assassins adored hashish. For a second, Hassan executed his own son for drinking wine. How could a mercenary remain cold-blooded while under the influence of hashish? The point was that assassins fulfill the faith of the Prophet, live simply, and having completed their mission, go to the promised paradise. And judging by the fact that a couple of thousand guys were treated respectfully by the big states, the scheme worked. It's important to realize that Hassan rarely killed for fun. Assassins didn't touch innocents. Their goal was to prevent a war against them or their supporters. Targets were selected point by point, carefully planned, and the rulers and high officials of hostile countries were targeted. There was a strict hierarchy within the order, which the games conveyed surprisingly clearly. Our Ardeshir is Rafiq. This means that he has murders behind him and has managed to survive. In the first game, the bureau leader of Damascus is called Rafiq, and now you are aware that this is not a name, but a title. Ordinary performers were called Fedayeen. Ardeshir's job was to instruct them. Higher up the career ladder were the Da'is, who communicated to Dariush and his team the will of the ruler. If Ardeshir will be successful, he will one day rise to the status of Dai al-Kirba. This is the elite of the assassins, privy to all the secrets and together with the Mountain Elder choose the goals and policies of the state. Belief in paradise at this stage was practically gone. Cold calculation came into play, for it was the dawn of the Crusades. Despite their simplicity and rejection of worldly goods, the assassins took their education seriously. Alamut had almost the most advanced library on the planet. According to historians, from an engineering point of view, the defense of the fortress was about 200 years ahead of its time. The Persians and Seljuks tried to storm it many times, But Alamut has always remained impregnable, thanks to the secret passages and defensive structures, and the fact that the commanders of the armies were killed suddenly. But there were not so many assassins, and the Sunnis were crushing. And a very unexpected ally loomed on the horizon, the Crusaders. Remember Al-Mualim from the first game? He has a real prototype, Rashid ad-Din Sinan. The Christians really gave the assassins the fortress of Masyaf for their services in the fight against the Sunni ruler Saladin. True, after the death of the elder Hassan, the order lost its grip. At least 3 attempts to kill Saladin and end the war are documented, but they all failed. And later, the Christian ruler Conrad of Montferrat betrayed the assassins altogether by suddenly sacking their lands. Guess what happened next? That's right. Conrad woke up with a knife in his heart. But that didn't make the assassin's state any easier. Our assassin had to fight on 2 fronts while fulfilling orders from both sides. Assassins on the orders of Saladin killed European kings Raymond II and the Duke of Bavaria. In turn, following orders from Christians, 6 viziers and 3 caliphs were sent under the knife. It was hard to sit on 2 chairs, but the guys made it. Only the onslaught of the Golden Horde in 1256 destroyed the state of the assassins. But this is no cause for shame. The Horde at the time destroyed everyone. And in defense of the assassins, note that the last elder even tried to organize a couple of murders of the Horde Khan. But according to UN estimates, the teachings of the mountain elder Hassan now preaches about 15 million people. Moreover, Prince Karim Aga Khan IV, a Swiss citizen, is a direct descendant of the last elder of the mountain. Karim has met with the Queen of Great Britain and Vladimir Putin, so technically the assassin order is alive and well. To call our Dariush Ardeshir's life good would be foolish. He was a murderer. But we should not forget the traditional channel rule. Times were hard and assassinations were commonplace at the time. It is another matter that the assassins created an unprecedented state, which lasted for several centuries, thanks to their tactics of pinpoint liquidation. However, the phrase "nothing is true, all is permitted" was not coined by them. It was coined by William Burroughs, a fan of assassins, and of Kurt Cobain. But in general, the romanticism of assassins came from the old Marco Polo, who described a mount of myths ranging from the Paradise Room to the fact that Hassan's men committed mass suicide to prove their commitment to the faith. Also, the assassins are in no way related to the Templars. No animosity existed between the guys. The game decided to connect the 2 orders for the plot, but in reality, although they existed at one time, but did not particularly intersect, it's possible that one of the Templars was killed by an assassin, but it was nothing more than a routine order. Much of their image is artificially exaggerated and sometimes confused with other mercenaries. For example, the Indian Thuggee, whose story is no less colorful. However, this, like the Templars, is a story for future videos. And that's all for now. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and write a 4-words comment. It really helps YouTube to promote this video. See you soon, folks.